This is AndyTube. In this video, I'm going to show you how to remove this vibrating bracket off of Stella, the Model 237. And in removing that, it's also easy to remove the pressure bar and the needle bar. Now, Singer recommended a way that's supposed to be easier to remove the needle bar, and I'll explain that when we get to it. But I'm going to remove the bracket, and while that's out, I'll show you how to remove the needle bar. So, anyway, like a lot of things, when you go to work on a sewing machine, you don't really start right here. You start someplace else. So let me turn Stella over here, and we're going to go to this piece right here, and I'm going to call that the needle bar driving arm, because that's what I've always called it. Even though in this case it's driving the vibrating bracket, and the needle bar is just along for the ride as that bracket moves back and forth. But so I guess technically it would be the vibrating bracket driving arm, but I'm going to call it the needle bar driving arm. And this, to begin, is really easy. It goes in a connection right here that has one set screw directly on the top. And I'm going to loosen that so we can pull the arm out. And I'm sorry, I hesitated for a minute, because every time I see this zigzag or stitch width mechanism, I just get fascinated with it. I haven't figured it out yet, but I will. Some of it I get, some of it I'm a little puzzled by. But Stella will reveal her secrets to us before we're through. So, let me grab a screwdriver here. Sorry, I got it on the other side of the camera. And we're just going to go right in to that set screw and turn it 2 or 3 times to get loose. There, okay? We can see that's loose. So just pushing it left and swinging that bracket out lets me take the arm out. And then I'm going to tighten that set screw back up a couple of turns just so I don't lose it while I'm working on the machine. Okay. So, let's see. Should I do this from up here? Let me see if I tilt this back, how it's gonna be. That's not too bad. Let me pull that. Okay, let's try it in this position here. So, what? Man, I got all my stuff on the other side. Sorry, that was very clumsy of me. So, how this bracket sits is there is a bushing down here that on most of the machines I would call the pressure bar bushing or bearing, but it's what the pressure bar slides in and out of. So you can see I took off the pressure foot. I also took the screws out, and I'm removing the needle plate. It's not necessary for this, but I don't want to bang it up. It's in pretty good shape, and I don't want to scratch it up or anything while I'm working with some tools here. So I took that off. So you've got this bushing down here that the pressure bar goes through, but it goes through the vibrating bracket too, right? Let me put the stitch width over in zigzag. There. So Now this will move real easy now. Okay, and there's a bushing up here at the top that the pressure bar goes through, and the vibrating bracket sits on. So it's kind of combined here. So I want to remove these bushings so that I can take them out. Then I can remove the bracket, and with the bracket will come the pressure bar and the needle bar. And if we don't loosen the clamping screws on those two bars, what we're going to do here will not even change their height. So if you were taking this out to maybe change the lifting lever or clean or repair something behind here, you could take it out with the bars, don't change the bars, and put it back in, and your needle bar height and your pressure bar height would be okay. So there's a set screw right here for this top bushing that's inside the steel casting of the body. So I'm going to go in there and I'm going to loosen that set screw pretty good. If you like to take them out and put them in your safe so you don't lose them, go ahead. I'm going to leave mine in. So I have this, oh look, see how that bushing is right there? There we go. So maybe I should loosen that spring. It's pretty tight. Oh, I got this lifted up too. Okay, then down here the bottom bushing, see these two holes? This top hole is for the screw that holds the nose cover on. But in the bottom hole there is another set screw that holds this bottom bushing. Now some people call this the thread cutter, and there is a frowny face mouth cut in here to slice your thread, but it's really a bushing. It's really the bushing for the pressure bar. So let's go in and whoop. Let's go in and find that little, there it is. Okay, and I'm going to back it up pretty good. You have to turn these more than just a half or one turn because they don't pinch the bushing. Usually there's a recessed area in the bushing that those go into. So, okay, this is looking good. So, we're going to start with the top bushing up here. Now, Singer had said to unscrew this and then remove the bushing. And the bushing can be really stuck in there. So if you want to use some penetrating oil or something. But how I got the original time, how I removed it, was I screwed this thumb screw in about halfway and just started prying and pulling and wiggling it, and then the bushing came out. That's what it looks like. So it's threaded up here. Let me wipe this a little bit. See, all that was left even though I cleaned it. But the bushing is threaded at the top for the pressure bar pressure adjustment thumb nut. Okay, so we have that out. Then there's I'm going to call it an extension pin excuse me, an extension pin that goes from inside that adjustment thumb nut and down into the top of the pressure bar right there. Okay, so I'm going to take out that extension pin, and you see that would fit up in here when it's all together. And let me show you this. Let me take that screw all the way out, and usually there's a little cupped area. Yeah, see that little cupped area is where that fits in So it's a nice fit there. Okay. You can see that that didn't get completely clean. So I think when you see this, you notice why I like to take stuff all apart when I clean. But the machine is like 95% clean, let's say. It's only picky stuff that I like to get out. Okay, so now we've got to get this bottom bushing out. And this is also typically in there very hard. Chances are it has never been taken out since the factory put it in. And so be sure you loosen or take out your set screw. You don't want to be fighting that, right? And then I'm just going to lift this to get it out of my way. I have an old piece of a leather belt that I wrap it with. If you've seen my other videos, taking these out. And I have some channel locks. So I'm going to get, let's see if I come around this side. I get a really good grip on there. And you can use vice grips too if you like. And then I started like twisting it to try and get that bushing to turn. And I started tapping it down here with my hand. So turning, tapping, turning. And then I thought I was just about to go find my rubber mallet when it started to come out. Boy, I put it back in there very good, didn't I? Let me back up that. I thought I backed up that set screw quite a bit, but let me back it up in case. You know, I never took the set screw out, come to think of it. So I don't know how long it is. It might be a lot longer, and it might be still in the groove of that bushing. So I'm going to there. I've really backed it out pretty good now. So let's try this again. Because there's not much of a way to get in here and like tap on the top of the bushing, because you've got the vibrating bracket there, right? And you've got the pressure bar going through everything. And that's how the bushings go. Just remember that top bushing comes out the top, and the bottom bushing comes off the bottom down here. So let's go in here and see now if backing that set screw out some more helped at all. See, and this would usually be sitting flat on the table, so I'd be able to get a little more pressure. Okay, let me find my rubber mallet so I don't injure my hand here hitting the channel locks. I can see it turn because the thread cutter moved. So let me find that and we'll come back and get that out. You know, it just didn't. It was hard to get out the first time when I was working on this, but it wasn't that hard. So that set screw is no big deal. I took it out. Look, it's so. Whoop. Okay, I was going to show you it's real tiny, but this is oh, there. Okay, there we go. Maybe that set screw was still. See this? Can you see this? Let me clean it. Can you see this part that's machined out right there? That's where the set screw sits in this area. So I thought I had it backed out enough, but evidently not. But you can see this end of the bushing is smaller to go up in here, and then the vibrating bracket will stick with it. So let me put this aside, and let's see about getting this out now. So the pressure bar needs to come up out of the hole for the bearing, and remember this whole thing swings now, right? So here's the needle bar connecting stud coming from the take-up lever mechanism, and that's where the clamping screw is. Now the screw just holds the needle in the stud, but the stud is just set into an opening on the connecting link, and it can just come out. So, and we have the driving arm loose, right? So if we lift up here and start lifting it up, there we go. Come on out of there. There we go. Here comes the whole thing. Just like that. So you see here's the needle bar, right? And here is the pressure bar. I'll turn it over so you can see the pressure bar back here. That's the back side of the bracket. And here's the front that you see. And you usually see this pressure bar in here so you can set the height and adjust the height and stuff like that. And then here's this little swiveling needle bar connecting link that plugs into the, let's see if I can, I've got the hand wheel on here, let me see if I can turn that, there we go. That just plugs into the take-up lever extension here. So this little swivel just plugs right in there when you go to put it back. Okay, so at this point, see, we didn't loosen the clamping screws, so if we had to get in there to replace this tension releasing bracket, if it was bent and we had to fix it or replace it, or you needed to get in here to clean rust or whatever, that's how you can take this out, do your thing, and then I'll show you how to put it back in, and your needle bar and your pressure bar are still going to be at the same height because the pressure bar is still connected to the take pressure bar lifting bracket here that goes, that the lever lifts. Alright, now let's talk about this needle bar for a minute, because Singer says to take out the needle bar, it just says remove the thread, the needle bar thread guard, this weird stiff steel pigtail that's clipped right into a groove on the bottom here. That, like I said, on mine, the pigtail was broken off, and I had a hard time just getting the rest of the little steel wire out of that groove. But they say take it off and then loosen the thumb nut, and the jib and the needle clamp and thumb nut will all come off together. Okay, then you loosen the clamping screw on the needle bar connector link, and then you just lift the pressure bar right out of the top like the other machines I've done. The only problem is working with this wire guard that just clips on to a groove here. It doesn't screw on or anything. It's got a pigtail. When I look, I found a few needle bars and stuff for the 237 online at a few places I go to buy, and none of them had the wire guard. And a couple of them I emailed and said, hey, you got the jib and you know, the needle clamp, what about the wire guard? And they just said, that was gone, or no, that always breaks. And you can't push it up and out of the bushing or bearing here because it sticks out, right? It's got a pigtail sticking out, so you can't push it up. So if I had to replace a bent needle bar, I'd take off this whole bracket, because if I loosen this clamping screw, which here, let me do it, I can slide the needle bar out the bottom now, because I have the whole thing out of the machine, right? So where they say take off the needle clamp thumb screw and the needle bar wire guard or thread guard and pull it out the bottom, if you just take off this vibrating bracket, you can push this right out the top like that. So if you wanted to replace it, if you wanted to clean it, I think you could just loosen the clamp and slide it up and clean the top part and slide it down and, you know, clean the bottom part without taking that wire off, if you're lucky enough to have that little pigtail wire thread guard. And then it just slides right back into this triple bushing thing on the vibrating back bracket. One here, one in the center, and one down here. It just slides back in there, and it's going to slide into that needle bar clamping right there. Just put it in there, right, and then just keep sliding it down until it goes through and out of this bottom bushing. See, the bushings are usually built into the machine, right? So now, of course, when you do that, you're going to have to set your needle bar height again when you put it back in. But you saw my video how to do that, how to set the height of the needle bar and pressure bar, and it's really very easy. Setting the height of a needle bar is one of the easiest things you'll do. So we can do that once we put it back together. And if you wanted to take out the pressure bar, you can just tilt it sideways and you can get it out to inspect or clean. And as long as you don't move the screw and bracket, you'll maintain the proper height when you put it back in. Then to put it back in, we're just going to slide it right in from the top and into its bottom bushing area. No, that's not right, is it? What is this? Oh, I got to slide the bottom in first and then it's going to come up. Yeah, because this bracket has to be between the two bushings, like this. Okay, let me rearrange stuff here and then we'll put it all back together. Okay, after that segment, I had to go find my set screw that I dropped. See that little guy? 4 feet away from where it hit my wood floor. They sure like to travel. And that's why a lot of times I just leave them in the machine, because I tend to lose them. And a lot of them are odd sizes and odd threading, so they can be hard to replace. But I found it, so let's put this vibrating bracket back on. And if you took these bearings, bushings, if you took these off, you already did all the hard work. And putting it back in is going to be a lot easier than taking it off. So I'll get my bracket now. And you know, I'm tilting this machine up on its back end so that you can hopefully get a better view of it and stuff. But you know, normally I would just have it sitting like it sits to sew, and turn the nose towards me on the bench and just work face on to it and stuff like that. But you find what's comfortable for you. So I'm going to put the driving arm back here up above, and the first thing that I like to do is get the pressure bar down into the area where later on I'll slide in the bearing. And then the next thing I like to do is get the needle bar connecting link into the take-up lever extension for it here, because it just slides right in there. Come on, there we go. Probably should put some oil on it here because I wiped it all off and stuff. There, okay, now it's in there. So just leave that bracket out there for a little bit, and then the vibrating bracket sits between the casting part of the machine here that holds the two bushings or bearings. So the first one I'm going to do is this top one, okay, and it doesn't have any particular way it has to go in. Just make sure you've got the threaded end up at the top. The end that goes down here on the bottom for the pressure bar extension pin doesn't have threads. So to make it easy on me, I just put in the adjusting screw a little bit, right? And then, see if I turn this around here. You just slide that right in, okay? And now the way that I set this up, you have to slide the bearing into the vibrating bracket. Whoops, I pulled out my connecting link, needle bar connecting link. Doggone it. I thought this was going to go so good. I really try, you know, I make these little storyboards about what I want to say and what way to do it, but I always seem to mess up a little bit. So I want to work that bushing inside the vibrating bracket up there, and it should go in all the way. And remember, I tightened this up a little bit after I loosened it so it wouldn't fall out, so I'm going to loosen it back up again, and I should be able to slide that bushing into, where's my, yeah, it should pretty much slide right in there. There. I had this end a little bit crooked because I don't have the bushing in yet. So when I straightened it up and lined it up this way better, then that slid right in. Now, see if I can get some more light over here. What I want you to see is the way that I do this is to make the top of that bushing flush with the top of the casting, just like that. Make it nice and even there. Now I'm going to tighten up this set screw, and I'm going to tighten it firmly because this top bushing or bearing doesn't need any more adjustment, and we don't want that you know, bushing moving around. So we're good there. Okay, let's come around this side. Because this bracket, the pressure bar bracket that the screw goes in and is lifted by this lever, that's how it lifts the bar. It has to tuck into this slot for it right here. the same slot that the lever is in. So you want your lever down so that the bracket will be on top, and if you start it up high, you can let's see, come up here a little bit more. There you go. You can find that slot and push that bracket into that slot. There. So see, it slides up and down. So when you lift the lever, it pushes on that bracket, which just slides up and down in the slot. Like that. So I got it in the slot because that's hard to do, if not impossible, when you put this bushing on the bottom. So now the bottom bushing that has that machined out area for the set screw, and one end is smaller. That's the end that that's going to go up in here, and the end with the little slash thread cutter goes to the bottom, right? So let's see if I can get that on there, and I'll slide it up in there. And this one I went ahead and took that set screw out, so it should go right up in there. And you can oil these inside and out if you like. You know, that is a very fine thing to do. So you've got to get that bottom hole of the vibrating bracket to go over the end of that bushing. So it sits, now the bracket is vibrating or turning on the top bushing and the bottom. Okay? Then you want to put the thread cutter where you like. Some people like it dead facing the back of the machine, but I think originally it's turned a little bit, like not towards the back, not towards the end of the machine, but about halfway. And now this bushing is stationary, right? We put it in flush with the top up here, and then we tightened it real good with the set screw. This one, that big machined out area, is so that you can adjust. So what you want is to push this bushing up when you go to tighten it, but you don't want it real hard so that your bracket is binding. I can't twist. And you don't want it like loose down here, because then you get this end play. You know, your bracket's popping up and down on every zigzag stroke, right? So you have to find your happy place, kinda, to where you push this up and you'll feel it stop, and usually if you hold it right there when you tighten it, you're going to eliminate your end play, but it won't be so tight that it doesn't want to swing back and forth. You know, you won't be binding it. Okay, so too loose and you get the bracket up and down thing. Don't want that. Push that bushing in too far and tighten it, and it's really hard to get the zigzag motion. Okay, so let me get my little set screw, and it's really not hard to feel it when you've got your hands on this and you're doing it. You'll see right away that when you stop the end play, stop it from going up and down. That's the point right there. So, see, I'm trying to get my little spring driver to get that set screw on there. I'm going to get it going in there. And again, I would put a little oil on all this stuff as you're reassembling it. Okay, so let's see how I'm doing here. Right? Get out of your view here. Too loose, right? Too loose. So I've got my thread cutter where I want it, and I'm just going to just push that up until it pushes the bracket up into here. Just like that. And I'm going to hold it right there without pushing it in farther, and I'm going to tighten my set screw because I like where that is. I'm going to tighten this enough to hold it. Then I'm going to test it, and if I like how I adjusted it, then I'll use my regular screwdriver. So, no end play. See? Not popping up and down, but look, wow. Very easy swinging motion, no binding. Yay! What a nice job we did, huh? Okay, and then I've got my pressure bar lifter bracket on top of the lever, and see how it lifts up my lever. I got that good. Okay, and on this side I still have my needle bar clamping extension into the take-up lever. So as a matter of fact, let me reach around the camera here and turn that arm shaft. See, my needle bar is going to go up and down. Okay, right? So I think I have everything pretty good. I can finish up now first by tightening my set screw very firmly, because I've got it right where I want it. Okay, and I've got no movement here. Okay, now I've got to get this pressure bar extension pin back in the top of the pressure bar and in the bottom of the adjusting thumb screw. So let's see, if I back that way out, I don't know if I can. Well, maybe I can put it in this top part first, because I have the thumb screw way out. I can sneak in there and get the end of it in. Okay, I got both ends in. So let me just tighten this up and make sure that I've got it inside that little cupped area on the bottom of my thumb screw, that it's not like on the side or something. Whoa. Da 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 da. I think that is it. So now, since I don't have this thread guard clipped on the bottom of this, I did not have to put my my needle clamp back on. The way this comes from the factory, with the little with the little jib inside and this pigtail wire clipped on here, this does not move. It doesn't want to move up and down, and it doesn't want to move side to side. You know, you loosen this and put your needle in and out, and the clamp itself doesn't move around. But since I'm missing all these parts, I can just put this on and off anytime I want, because there's nothing to block it. But since I took the needle bar out of the vibrating bracket, I have to set the height again, right? I got to reset the height because I messed it up. If you did not loosen this clamping screw and move the needle bar around in the bracket, you just put it back like this and it's the right height, just like the pressure bar is at the right height. Okay, but I fooled around with it. So what I have to do, if you remember, is get the needle bar in its lowest position by turning the hand wheel towards me and getting that right at the very bottom. Oops, I turned it on the table, it moved a little bit. Got to get this needle bar down to the very bottom here. Okay, and then, whoops, every time I set it down it moves. Shame on me. Let me see if I set it down very carefully. Okay, so if you remember, there's two timing marks at the top edge of this needle bar, and with the mechanism all the way down, I want the top of the two. Oh, I forgot. Don't move that once I got it set. I'm trying to get a better view in the camera, and I keep moving it. Okay. So I want that top timing mark to be entering into this top bushing up here. Just like that. So I can just barely still see that black timing mark. I don't see any silver above it, but I can still see the mark. Otherwise, look, I could move it up here. I can't see the mark. I don't know how far up into that bushing I am. So you just get it up to where it's just disappearing into there, but you can still barely see that little black circle, that little black etching into the needle bar. Okay, and then you have to, if you, besides the height, you have to be sure your needle bar is facing properly. So this has this big groove cut into it, and I'm going to look at that dead on from the end, and that means it's straight. Now you can also have your needle clamp, and the thumb screw should be directly behind when you look at it from the end. I'm just going to wiggle my needle bar back up a little bit and make sure it's straight relative to the front of the machine. And now I'm going to tighten that clamping screw nice and firmly. Matter of fact, I need my other bit. Okay. So let me tilt the machine now and just turn that arm shaft to make sure that I'm going up and down. Yep. Okay. Now, do you remember where we started? We started by taking this driving arm out of this little bracket with the set screw that holds it. Okay, so we've got to loosen that screw. I think I tightened that one up too so I didn't lose it. Got to loosen that up, and I'm going to put this arm back in someplace. Let's see, maybe I put the machine back in straight stitch. You see it's in the shadow here. Does this turn? Oh, this turns a little bit. Oh, it would because it swings. Okay. So let me find the hole for the arm and put it in there. There we go. Now, this is the surprise. Some of you may have realized this, but since this bar makes the needle bar vibrating bracket, it's what pushes when the mechanism pushes, we broke the connection And this is how you center the needle into the needle plate. So now that we loosened this and took it out, we have to put it back in the exact spot so that the needle in the needle bar will go into the center of the opening in the needle plate or throat plate. So I just want to firm this up a little bit so it's not so floppy, right? Yeah, see, it still moves a little bit. Let's see, you couldn't see what I did. I tightened this up a little bit so it's not so floppy. There's a little bit of drag from that screw. Okay. Now, to center the needle in the needle plate, we want the machine to be in the center needle position, not left, not right, but in the center. And we want it to be all the way to the right in this case, which is straight stitch. It's not going to work to center it halfway or all the way into a zigzag stitch. So we want center needle, straight stitch, and we're going to put our needle plate on down here. Let's see if I can, where's my needle plate? Okay. I'm just going to set it on there because it's clean and it will sit flat. But you should probably go ahead and tighten those screws, you know, when you're doing this. And you're going to have to make believe with me now, because my needle clamp will not hold a needle because I'm missing that jib. So let me get my needle clamp on here, and I'll pretend there's a needle in it, and you pretend that you see it. And what you're going to do is lower that needle bar so that your needle will enter into the opening for it on the needle plate. Okay, so turn the hand wheel, get that to come down and say, oh, okay, my needle's inside that little hole. And then you can either measure that hole and make a spot, or with your needle in there, you can just eyeball it, and when it's in the center of that opening, that's where you want to tighten the screw on the needle bar driving arm. And to move that needle left and right, you can have your choice of just grabbing it up here at the corner, like of the bushing, and moving it around. Whoops, I pulled it so far it came out. And moving it, you know, back and forth until you find that your needle is dead center in that opening. Okay. Or, if you prefer, you can move the bar back here the same way, which is also going to move that bracket. Okay. Some people hold the needle bar and move it back and forth like that. So however you want to move it to position when that needle, you know, is right in the center of the hole, you say, yeah, that's perfect, ta-da. Then you leave it there, or you hold it there, and then you come back up here and you tighten. See if I can give you a better view of this. You come back and you tighten this clamping screw on the needle bar driving arm, because you have the needle centered in the needle plate right now. Okay, good. So, my suggestion is, after you do all this, if you didn't oil it while you're putting it back together, go ahead and oil it at the oil points like I did in my video, or that are in the instruction manual, you know, to get fresh oil on there before you use it. And go ahead and turn your hand wheel, and just leave it in straight and turn your hand wheel. Make sure it turns easy, that there's no binding with anything that you've done so far, and it should be fine. Then leave it in center and go ahead and put it all the way to the left width, which would be the number 4 width. That's the widest. And then you're going to want to watch your needle bar, you know, going left and right and left and right, and you're going to make sure, why am I hitting something down there? You're going to make sure that the needle doesn't hit the needle plate on the left or the right side. Okay? So you have good movement and you have your full width in it. If you have the needle not in the center and you go to stitch like 3 or 4, the chances are that you will hit the needle plate with the needle on one side or the other. So that's why you center the needle in straight stitch right in the center of that opening right there. That's where your needle goes in and out, right? So that's where you want to center it. And then if you do that, your width, zigzag, and so forth will not go so far to the left or right that it hits the needle plate. Move this back here. So that is all about the vibrating bracket. How to take it off, how to put it on, how to you know, adjust end play and prevent binding of it as it swings. How you can remove that and take out the pressure bar and the needle bar without losing your height. But if you do want to take them out, when you put them back in, you can watch my video on how to set the height for both of them and get them back where they belong. And lastly, when you go to reconnect the driving arm, you got to center your needle down there in the needle plate, so your needle is right in the center of that opening, right in the center of the opening. Okay, folks. So you get the applause for hanging in there this long, and I hope you'll tune in the next time to see the next one. I'm not going to say what it is, frankly, because I'm not sure I can get this zigzag stuff figured out by then. so I'll have to see about that. I think I can, but we'll see. If I haven't, I'll think of something else to do on the machine. Thanks for tuning in. Thank you so much. Come back and see me when you have time, and take care.